From Vassar College, this is Conversations at the Salt Line. On this episode, a conversation with Tori Maldonado.
Hey everyone, it's me, Wes, and welcome to another episode of Conversations at the Salt Line. Today, I'm extremely honored to welcome Vassar alum and this year's commencement speaker, Tori Maldonado, class of 1996. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
No. This is not going to work because before we started rolling, you were much more effusive and much more effervescent in your personality. Now you're trying to be all coy and a dignitary as a commencement speaker. I want you to give us on this camera the same thing you gave me before we started rolling. I'm not doing this with you, Tori.
Definitely. And also being from New York, I have to say that being here, I have to quote Fat Joe, Remy Ma, and French Montana, I'm all the way up.
Okay, well, Remy Ma's going through some stuff right now. Actually,
yeah. So
she has a little bit of some drama, but the quote still stands.
Thanks.
Listen, you are here to give the commencement address to some impressionable, excited, bushy-tailed Vassar seniors, and we're going to get into some of that. But I'm actually curious before we start to hear about your commencement day, and I would love to hear your reflections on who spoke, what you remember, how you felt. What was that day like for you?
It's so interesting that you asked that question because when you and President Bradley and I Zoomed, President Bradley said something that I had on my mind. She said, just keep the message hopeful, keep it fun, and maybe somebody will remember something, because how many of us remember the commencement remarks from our commencement?
Right.
And so circling back to your question, I don't remember anything said by the commencement speaker.
Well, who was it?
Somebody told me recently that it was Maurice
Someone
Sendak.
told you?
I don't even remember who it was.
Oh, my goodness.
You know, one of the reasons why I didn't remember is because, they say Maya Angelou says that people will forget what you say, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. And this is not a reference to whoever spoke and how they did or didn't make me feel, but I remember looking for who would show up for me for my graduation. And so it was a little sad because coming from a poor background, a lot of the people who in my village who helped raise me up to that moment, they couldn't be there. So we're going to take those lemons and we're going to make lemonade, because there's going to be some moments inside the commencement speech where we make sure that everybody who did show up gets love, and everybody who is looking like me for those people, that they feel the love too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And, as you said that, I can imagine how you felt when you didn't see some folks who you wish you would have seen. And at the same time, I know that it did not diminish the impact they had in your life. Their presence did not signify their absence otherwise, right? And so it's funny because I think about it for myself. There are things you can't make. You can't make your friends this. You can't go to your family's this. And you feel like, oh my gosh, I really want to be there. And maybe you could if you could, right? But the truth is, our relationships and our relations to one another, I hope, transcend sort of these episodic moments, right?
Absolutely.
And that we can appreciate people for more than their presence or their absence in certain moments.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why I value one of the words you used. You said impressionable, because everybody who has interacted with us has left an impression on us and has molded us along the way. So even though people, may not be there for some of our graduates, I'm sure that the graduates,
they feel them. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So what I didn't say and neglected to say when I introed you is that you have many, many roles in the world. In many ways you could be described. But the two ways that I didn't get to say were that you are an educator, a New York City public school teacher, and an author.
Yes.
Both incredibly dynamic, interesting, and meaningful bodies of work.
Thank you.
And so I would love to hear from you the process by which you came into being an author. I'm sure you weren't always writing. You had to learn how to write, right? And so what was it like for you? When did you first realize that you had something to say?
I didn't recognize I had something to say with my three sisters because there was a lot of "shut up, big head," siblings and how we rib each other.
Are you the baby?
I am the baby.
Yeah, I can
You
tell.
can tell, right?
Yeah.
Definitely. It's the lotion, the baby face is working.
Yeah, it's okay. Yeah. You don't look too dry.
Thank you. Dry is what I was trying to go
To
against.
avoid, right.
I was trying to avoid that. If you ask my mom would say he's had something to say.
Miss
since-
Carmen.
Miss Carmen. Oh my God! Thank you for saying Miss Carmen. A lot of people who are not from certain communities in our community don't will say the government name and not say Miss Carmen, and that's how she was referred from one end of the housing projects we grew up in to the other end, Miss Carmen. Yeah, but my mom used to say, he's going to be a writer, and she used to say that when I was walking around in diapers with the eating the crayon. She used to say that when I had the pencil turned the wrong way, right? And I was spelling my words backward. My mom, she had this unshakable belief. And she had a talent in spotting people's
It's a gift.
gifts. And so she's like, he's going to grow up and be a writer. He's going to grow up and be a writer. I have to say, I didn't believe that. And even when I got to Vassar, some people remember me and they say, oh, you were so vocal. You were so outspoken. You were so well-spoken. And when I got to Vassar, I was intimidated because of the brilliance that exists on average with students here and with professors. So I felt like I was questioning. I was doubtful. Did I have something to share? But also, the way that I came up, I don't know if it was intentional. It was definitely structural, that every school that I had attended preceding Vassar, the shelves were whitewashed. And it was a very specific way of speaking. And so the way I wanted to tell a story, I hadn't encountered it yet.
Right.
So I just remember being at Vassar, and it wasn't in writing circles, but it was in classes, it was in other circles where I had professors and people say, you got to say it the way you say it. You got to speak your truth. And that seed and that watering of that seed eventually blossomed into, you know what? I'm going to say my truth, and I'm going to say it the way we say it, the way you say Miss Carmen.
Yeah.
And that's when the that self-doubt started to dissipate. And then, that, like Maya says, you have to be a rainbow in someone's cloud. That's when the rainbow of my writing started to shine through the cloudiness of doubt.
beautiful. I wonder when you had that realization that you should and were encouraged to speak and to write and communicate in ways that were natural to you, were there things that had happened previously in your life that maybe before that realization you sort of like didn't give value to, had not given voice to, did not see as a story, right? That once you sort of were given the license or the liberty to sort of think about stories differently, they came back and you're like, oh, actually, that is compelling, that is meaningful, that is unique, and you had not thought so before.
Yeah.
What was that like? And if that happened, what were some of those things that you uncovered or relearned as a storyteller?
Shakespeare says there's nothing good about it, think it makes it so, right? And there's a yin and yang to this story. There's something kind of bad, but something really good about it. So when I was in high school, I remember a bunch of friends said, you need to write for this student zine. And after much nudging, I wrote something, right? When it published, we all were shocked because I guess it was my friends. And how friends feel each other. My friends felt like the whole piece should have been in there, but only a paragraph was in there. Other students had their whole piece. I only had a paragraph. And I felt two things. One thing that I felt was I felt like my voice was being sidelined. I was also being told, implicitly or, explicitly that, my story, it wasn't important enough to be fully laid out.
Right.
So I just remember feeling like, wow, but they say that even in the darkest times, there's some light. right? The story was about my mom. And it was about how my mom would take me out of our housing projects and walk me 23 blocks away so that I could be in Vassar type environments. And specifically, she would walk me to the Brooklyn Heights Promenade. And in the Brooklyn Heights Promenade, I would play in the playground with kids of doctors, lawyers, young people who would be future Wesses. And it started to make me feel I belonged, right? So that story, it was a longer piece, but it got shrunk down to just a paragraph. And I felt like, wow, so this story, there's no worth to it, right? Turns out there's a lot of worth to it, because what it lit in me, or what it shone light on, was they didn't say no to the whole story.
Right.
They said yes to that paragraph. There's something in that paragraph.
Right.
There's a flame in that paragraph that I can
Build
torch
from,
and build until it's blazing hot.
Yeah.
And one of the favorite scenes that fans across the world love from my book Tight is this chapter on the promenade scene. So I had taken that paragraph and I had stretched it into a whole chapter, but I remixed it in a way where today's young people felt it's undeniable. And I believe that if those people who shrunk my whole essay into a paragraph, if they saw that chapter, they would also feel it's undeniable and that it should be fully laid out.
That's an incredible story for myriad reasons. I mean, it speaks a lot, I think, to your foresight, maturity, sort of grounded perspective, to be able to sort of understand that what was happening wasn't quite sort of a denial, right? It was, in fact, an affirmation of something.
Yes.
And for you to sort of not be mired in sort of the potential negative feelings of the erasure or sort of the slight, if you will, I think takes a lot of, again, maturity and perspective.
Thank you.
And I think it's something that our graduates and other young people and people in the world generally could learn from. I think it's really easy to
I love your
just
paraphrase.
see.
You make me sound better. I love it.
No, I'm just giving back what you gave me.
No, you're right, and I do really appreciate that
Yeah.
you're saying. Yeah, don't be mired in it. Instead, we get fired up by it.
Yeah.
I'm also Oprah Winfrey. She says life will speak to you in whispers, and
Yeah.
not shout at you. And I felt like that paragraph, that was a whisper.
It's funny you said that. We had I don't know if you listened to this episode before, but we had a episode with another author, a Brooklyn-based author, actually.
Hey, baby.
Robert Jones Jr., who wrote a book called The Prophets. And the book called The Prophets was the first-year common reading for this last year's first-year students at Vassar. And I won't go into the full story because I've done that on a podcast before. But one of the things we talked about and that he writes about in the book are the whispers. And in his book, the whispers are the ancestors are actually who is whispering in the novel, but they're communicating to those who are here today through the whispers. So it's not lost on me what you just said, that Oprah has the same perspective about whispers.
I just wrote his name down again because that was an episode that I wanted to see. And one of the reasons why it caught my eye is because he's Robert Jones Jr. and I like boxing, so I thought it was Roy Jones Jr. I was like, wait, what? They have Roy Jones Jr.? Oh, Robert Jones Jr.
Well, it's so funny. So I didn't know you liked boxing, but I shouldn't say I'm surprised because as I've read your commencement remarks for tomorrow and read one of your books, Hands.
Are they good?
They're incredible. Everything's incredible.
Thank you.
Everything is incredible. And I don't lie.
I know you don't.
So they're all incredible.
Thanks for keeping it real.
Of course, absolutely. I have to say I got confused because not confused in a negative way, but when I read your remarks and I read your book, Hands, I couldn't keep the stories straight between your remarks and the book. And I'm realizing it's because you pull so much from your personal life. And so some of the same stories I read in your remarks, there were pieces of them that were part of the novel and part of the plot in Hands, right? There were phrases, there were quotes. The quote about, you said it earlier, and I can't remember which one it was, but the rainbows and the clouds and whatever.
Maya Angelou.
In your remarks, it's in the book. And so that's exciting because, of course, all your art then, I shouldn't say all, the art that I've read of yours is from you. It's born of you.
Yes.
But I'm curious how you feel about that. Is it ever taxing to continue to have to pull from your life for broader consumption or to create new art, or is it in some ways healing for you to do that? What are sort of the ways that you think about using yourself as the canvas for your publicly consumable art?
Mm-hmm. It says it's taxing, but I'm going to quote Eric B. and Rakim when he said paid in full. I feel like it's the opposite. I feel like it's not taxing. I feel like because so much of my stories draw from my life and from the lives of students that I've taught for over 25 years, I feel as though I have this unlimited source material.
Yeah.
I feel like there's this eternally springing fountain. Now, that's me. But if you ask the people around me, is it taxing? Before we got into the podcast, I told you that you're fire, and I can feel that fire, right? And one of the funny things is some people say fire can't feel itself. It's us that outside of fire that feels the heat. Like I feel your heat, Wesley, right? And I have to say, when I write, I get so in it and inflamed in good ways, hot ways, inflamed in, just illuminating ways that I'm having my experience and I'm not taxed, but people around me see something different.
In you?
In me. For example, I have a daughter who just turned 17, and we were joking about hip hop. I used, when she was a little baby, I would sing a song to her and say, May 21st, Queen of the Verse, because one of the kings of the verse was also born on May 21st, Biggie. And my daughter, she would see me write my different books, and she can almost tell the type of chapter it was, based upon my mood. She'll come in and go, "Oh, this must be a good chapter because look at that smile, or look how you glowing." Or she'll come in and say, time to avoid that, because I was probably writing about something a little bit more complex and a little bit more painful.
Gosh, how has she grown up as a person, as I don't know if she's a writer or not, but she's growing up.
She's a better writer than me. Seriously. And I'm not saying that as one of those proud dads. You know how family could be, and people who love us exaggerate, like you're a little toddler and you take one step and they say, "Oh, well, my baby ran 10 steps." No, literally, she's one of the best writers.
I love that.
Great writing is, and I don't want to interrupt your question.
No.
Great writing has to stand out, right? It has to have a balance of not only showing what hasn't been seen, not only saying what hasn't been said, helping people experience something that they haven't experienced, but it also has to strike a chord. It has to resonate. It has to be relatable. It has to have a universality. And fans of my writing say I do that. And I'm a fan of her writing because her writing definitely does that.
I love that. You didn't actually interrupt my question, because I was realizing as I was asking it, I actually had something else that I wasn't articulating clearly that I wanted to ask you. What I was more curious about actually was as you have grown as a writer and as you've written more and you've learned yourself better through the process of writing, I am curious how it has, in this particular example, influenced your parenting, but more broadly, how your growth as a writer has influenced your all sort of relationships in your life, right? How have you related to people differently, if you have at all, as you've grown as a writer?
Definitely. You don't hear people say, the thing that they do, or their chosen career is their therapy. You recently had a doctor who graduated Vassar, right? And she was talking about how being in the lab is her therapy. Writing for me is very much my therapy. And
That's a good draw, particularly, I imagine, because so much of your writing is personal or drawn from personal experience, right? So it isn't detached from what you've actually gone through. It is, in fact, what you've gone through that you're writing about.
Definitely. And, when I was here at Vassar, I remember writing an article for the Miscellany News, and the title was Walking the Talk. And walking the talk has been very important to me. Elders have told me that. My mom is Carmen. You know, she raised me up to walk the talk, right? And follow people who walk the talk. And I just, you know, remember reading this story once before I ever published anything.
Yeah.
And the person was telling a story about their dad and was saying, you know, my dad, he would take the shirt off of his back and give it to me. My dad was the type of dad who he knew I needed a car, and he drove the car all the way to my college, left the car, and then found a way to get back. Like, that was my dad. But I didn't know what scared my dad. I didn't know, you know, what my dad's favorite X was, or what his hope to do Y was.
Right.
And so one of the things I try to do with my writing is I try to take the mask off. I not only unmask myself, but there's a lot of masks that people wear.
Sure.
You know, Maya Angelou, quoted her earlier, she has an amazing poem, We Wear the Mask. You know, and oftentimes boys, tweens and teens wear a mask. You know, they man up, got to be hard. And so in writing about unmasking boys and unmasking males so that we can have a healthier masculinity across the board, I got to walk that talk. And there's a lot of times where my daughter would have read one of my books and she would say, you know, you're not acting like Trev, or you're not acting like Stefan. You know, you talking about it, Dad, but... And so I feel like parenting has helped me take the mask off even more, be more vulnerable, but also show more vulnerabilities in my characters. So having a daughter has helped me grow in my writing process.
That's
definitely.
beautiful.
Keeps me honest.
Well, absolutely. You know, she's a mirror.
Yeah.
She probably looks like you.
Justin Timberlake. It's like she's my mirror. Whoa.
I love that song. Yeah, he's in some trouble too.
Yeah,
you
I
keep,
know.
You
Right?
keep quoting all these
some
soiled
problematic.
artists.
I know. We got to get somebody. Mention something else so that I can find an artist that is not complex.
Okay, we got you. We have some time left. We'll do it. And I am curious. We're going to get into Hands in a little bit because I loved reading Hands, and I want to sort of touch on some of these themes with that as a reference point. But I am curious, just in the context of writing generally. You of course write for everyone. I read Hands and found it meaningful. So
Thank you.
It's not. I mean, I think the categories are young adults. I think novels, but I, as a not so young adult, found it meaningful too. But you're writing for young adults in your novels, and tomorrow you're speaking to some a little bit older young adults who graduated from college. And I'm curious if the messages that you think are important and that you put into your books are some of the same messages you think are important for these young college graduates to hear. How do you sort of compare and contrast your writing for your books versus preparing for example, this commencement address tomorrow?
Right. Well, I'm just going to take, to be the best, I'm going to take a page from Wes.
Okay.
Are you ready? Remember when you were talking about Rainbow in the Clouds?
Yeah.
And Maya Angelou, you said that showed up in my graduate remarks, the commencement remarks, and it also shows up inside my book. Recently, there was an organization that serves illustrators and writers from around the world, and they contacted me, and they said, you need to close out our conference. We need someone who is going to be inspirational. And so I said, okay. All right, I'll do it, right? And I did it, and I revolved it around empathy, and I revolved my remarks around being a rainbow in someone else's cloud. And you should have seen the chat flooding with adults from across the world saying, this is the message that I needed to hear. Absolutely spot on. You know, you hit pay dirt. It was such a resounding success that even before I ended the mic, the people who invited me privately messaged me and said,
What's next? When can we have you again?
When can we have you again?
Right.
You need to be here for our summer conference. And so there are a lot of messages that are important to adults and they're important to young people. There was a young boy. I think he's going to be the next Jimmy Fallon. He's going to be the next Jimmy Kimmel. This young boy, he finds the best of the best illustrators and writers, and he interviews them. And he got in touch with me. He said, I need to interview you because hands is my life. Immediately, I thought, he's like me, right? His background is
Sure.
Puerto Rican and African American. He's from an urban environment,
Sure.
maybe Brooklyn roots. You know, I grew up single mom home. Maybe he's growing up in a single parent home. All of these things, right? And we set up a Zoom. Pops on the Zoom. He looked like a white Urkel. It's a little white boy wearing a bow tie, and I was intrigued. I said, you said so many glowing remarks about hands, and you said it mirrors your life. I'm curious why. And he said, actually, it was a show and tell. He held up a bookmark. He made a bookmark, and on the bookmark it said, be a rainbow in someone's cloud. He said, I made this bookmark for you, and I want to mail it to you. He said, because that message is something I feel every kid needs to hear. So we have adults saying they need to hear that message, and that's what I try to do. I try with all my writing is to do what Common, the rapper, raps in the song with John Legend.
He's okay.
He said,
They're both okay.
and I think he's okay, right?
They're safe.
Yes, I have a non-complex,
They're safe.
complicated artist that I reference.
There you go.
Feeling it. And so, Common, he raps, we need the wisdom of the elders, but young people's energy. And that's what I constantly find myself thinking about, as an educator, but also as a writer, is the best salesperson is your peer, right? So how do I take the messages that everybody needs to hear, and that comes through the ages, but remix it in a modern way, where young people say, yo, that's hot.
Yeah.
You know?
What I know now to be true, I knew this before, but now you speaking has affirmed it for me, is that you are, if you haven't already, going to write the next version of The Little Prince. Because that is, I think, exactly what you're talking about, right?
I have to be 100% honest. I've never heard The Little Prince, and
You've
I
never
don't know
read-
what
you've
The Little Prince is, so school me.
I can't. No. You have to read it, and then you'll call me and we'll talk about it.
Okay.
But it's a short book. It's oh my goodness. But you mentioned this earlier.
The dedication of that book is going to be for you, and I'm going to have to put you in acknowledgments if I write this book.
This next book.
Because you help inspire it.
Read The Little Prince.
Yes.
And read about The Little Prince.
Yes.
It has been around. I can't tell you when it was published. It's over 100 years old, I'm sure. But it's short. No more than 90 to 100 pages. And it's a simple allegory of this little boy who's exploring the universe. But it is one of these books that I think actually as an adult, it has much more power than if you were to read it as a child. You read it often in grade school. At least I read it in grade school. But I think it actually has much more power as an adult. And I think it's not even important because you're going to write the next version of The Little Prince that will be virally successful and applicable to all people walking the earth. So I can't wait for that to happen.
You named it. Let's claim it.
It's going to be.
It's going to be.
Let's talk about Hands, because that might actually be that book or a predecessor to the book that you're going to write. I loved reading Hands for a variety of reasons. Much like the young man you talked about, I could see other things. I could see parts of my life in the book too. And we can definitely talk about some of that, although we are strapped for a little bit of time. So I won't go into too much detail about it right here. But there are a couple of things that stuck out to me about Hands, a couple of thematic aspects. One was the concept of promise.
Yes.
And I was so moved by the complexity and nuance with which you grappled with that word. I'll give you my quick primer on it, but I want you to react, correct, or elaborate on what I start with.
I love it. I like how you're turning this into a game show format. Let's do it.
So the way that I took promise out of the book was that, or I think the insight rather that you write in the book is that we all have promise, of course. That said, there is a potential for our promises to come in conflict with our promise. That is to say, you can't commit to somebody else in ways that is unaligned with who you are or who you're meant to be. I liked it, and I had a feeling when I read it or came to that conclusion that it had a sense of selfishness to it. Because you're really saying that I have to really be true to myself at the expense of other people to some extent. right? And so I'm just curious how you, when you wrote the book and as you live today in real life, how you think about this concept of promise and promises that are related to that.
Yeah. What we know is people say, watch the company you keep, and I would add, we got to watch the promises we keep, because some promises are tethered to things that are going to take us over a waterfall to a not so good landing. Maya Angelou, I hope she gets money off of this because I'm going to quote her again. Maya Angelou said that if you have one smile, save it for the people who lift you up. And she says people will go out into the world and practice their best professional behaviors with people they don't know or or people who they're working with. And then they go home and they don't practice those professional skills that they need to practice. Basically, how I interpret that is we can keep promises to so many people and gain the world, but then lose our soul. And we got to remember who we should keep promises to, who lifts us up, who lights us up. I have to mention my niece.
Please.
Because when I was a first-year student here...
This is the one you raised.
This is the one I helped raise, yeah. Funny story. I only recently learned that she was named after a Thundercat. Lionel Hope. We were at her house, and my sister says, I named her after a Thundercat. I said, what? Her name is Shatera.
Oh.
And shout out to my niece Shatera, who will be at commencement with her family. And I said, Shatera? She said, yeah, Chitara. But I didn't want it to be exactly Chitara, so I remixed it into Shatera. So I remember when I was a first-year student here, I'm the first person in my family to graduate high school.
Yeah.
I'm the first person in my family to attend college. And I felt that I was living up to the promise that my village had in me and that my mom had in me, but I wanted to keep a promise. I wanted to help put a smile on someone who lit me up. So I would have my niece come up here with my sister, and still remember toddler her standing on the steps of Raymond House. And I'm glad to say that because I kept promise to her.
Yeah.
And like I try to keep promises across the board in my life. Not only did I help raise her, but she called me into her room one day, and it felt like an intervention. She said, I need to talk to you, Uncle. So her fiance go into the room, some other relatives come into the room, and I'm standing there wondering what's going on. And she pulls out her cell phone, she starts to read. She says, you were the only dad that I've ever had. And because of the promises that you kept to me, I would like you to walk me down the aisle. And I walked her down the aisle, and fast forward, she's super successful today. She has 2 beautiful daughters. She's married to a wonderful man, and they're all going to be here.
With you.
Yeah, be with us.
Yeah.
And, at commencement, when I speak, and even this morning she just texted me how she's tearing up just thinking about the moment.
That's beautiful.
So that the idea of promise is, we all have great promise in different ways, but we have to make sure that we're careful of the promises that we keep.
Absolutely.
Because some of the promises bear really good fruit that we want to reap.
Absolutely. The other concept that's related to what you just said and is also in the book is this concept of a village. And you referenced it in the book, but also in your remarks tomorrow. And one of the things that I think Trev, the protagonist in Hands, deals with is having an awareness that there is a village that he exists as a part of. But at the same time, at different points in time, feeling loneliness and not feeling held by the village that he knows he's a part of.
Right.
And I'm just curious if, in the spirit of your life inspiring your work, are there times where you felt like you knew you had a village, you knew who they were, but you felt abandoned and felt lonely and felt sort of untethered in a paradoxical sort of way?
Yeah, I'll share a moment, a Vassar moment.
Mm.
I'll never forget. I got the family contribution that would need to be paid for me to re-enroll in my next year of Vassar, and it dropped my jaw because I grew up on welfare. The family contribution was the money that I was making working campus jobs,
Sure.
and so when I saw that price tag, I wondered, how am I going to make enough money
Yeah.
to come back to Vassar? And I felt very alone because here I am around all of these people, and all of this joy, and I was feeling deep, deep sorrow. And here I was connected to so much awesomeness and opulence and lavishness, and yet I felt alone
Yeah.
in my poverty. And there was a upperclassman. She came in the same way that you know me, and you could say your mom is Miss Carmen, right? And you could read me, instantly. She was from where we were from, and she saw in my face and said, "What's wrong with you?" And I said, "I got to find a job this summer that is going to pay me enough money that I can come back to Vassar." And then she said, the Children's Defense Fund has a summer program where if you work with them, they're going to train you in child pedagogy. They're going to train you to be a teacher. And then they put you in a school, a freedom school. And at the end of the summer, they pay you this much, a stipend, but you must apply it to educational purposes. I said, "How much is the money?" It was the exact amount that I needed to come back to Vassar.
Wow.
And so, there in my aloneness, instantly I felt connected to
Absolutely.
a village. And it's funny that we were talking about it takes a village, because the person who came up with the quote, "It takes a village to raise a child," is the head of the Children's Defense Fund. Marion Wright Edelman came up with that
Absolutely.
quote. And I talk about full circle moment. I would have never thought at that moment, that Vassar undergrad moment would lead to, fast forward, I would write a book that would make the Children's Defense Fund say, this is going to be our required book for all freedom schools. And this upcoming June, I get to live a dream. I get to go to the Alex Haley Farm, and I get to be one of the speakers. And they're using Hands, the book that I wrote, which has messages that will be shared inside the commencement speech.
Just incredible.
Incredible.
It's incredible.
Yeah, I'm sitting here with you. That's happening. Life's good.
Oh my goodness. Listen, we're coming towards the end of our time, unfortunately, because we have other places to go.
Yeah.
But before our hot seat questions, I just want to talk on one topic, which definitely we don't have enough time for, but it's timely, and you raised it briefly earlier.
Should we get the phone out and put a stopwatch on?
No.
Do
Do what's comfortable for
Okay.
you. But we talked about your books centering around male protagonists.
Yes.
And we talked briefly about the concept of masculinity. I'm not sure if you read, but in the Times just a couple of days ago, there was an article about young boys and men, and with new data sort of showing that young men and boys are falling behind in a variety of different dimensions.
I love
it.
it. You're giving me my homework. I got to watch the Robert Jones Jr.
Yes.
I got to read The Little Prince, and you got to tell me the name of that article later.
I'll text it to you.
Okay,
I'll send
good.
it to you.
Thanks.
So that the general premise, of course, unfortunately, is that men and young boys are falling behind in all kinds of dimensions, to include educational attainment, college persistence, labor market participation as grown adults transitioning into adulthood. And so, of course, not having read the article, you still are aware of this trend. I'm positive that you are. And so I'm curious what you make of the constant conversations about masculinity and how you see your work in your writing fitting into this conversation, at least nationally, but maybe even broader than that at this point in time. What role do you think your work can play in starting to address some of the different boy or male-centered problems that we experience or hear about in this country?
I'll never forget the first time that I saw a review of my very first book, and the reason why I don't forget it is 'cause I remember how it made me feel. It was those were the words that I wanted someone to say. I wanted to write a book that no one else could write because no one else lived it.
Yeah.
And that was the review. The person said, you had to live this in order to write this. And so when I write about masculinity and I write about the struggles of boys and the struggles of men, this is because I lived it and I'm living it. And I'm working with young males who live it. I have to say that I feel like a river runs through me. I feel like the issues that I work with in my own personal life and then I work with through literature and through education, they have been given to me, but they're not mine. I inherited them because in the 1940s, Frankie Valli sang a song, "Walk Like a Man, Talk Like a Man," right? So even before that, if we take it back to medieval times, there have been concepts of masculinity that have been unhealthy, that have been undermining males living their true potential and living their fullest lives. So I feel the work I'm doing is on a continuum. And there's some great, like you just said, that article, I can't wait to read it. There's some people who are doing great work around it. And I just feel like a piece in a puzzle that is trying to untangle this rubber band ball of toxic masculinity. And unfortunately, a lot of people say that my books are helping untangle and helping to create a better narrative. I have to share this because this happens with every book, and this is better than any review I've ever gotten. Every book, I have people say, "This is not just a boys' book." I have a lot of girls who resonate with the books, but this is the thing that I love. Whenever I get it, and I was waiting for hands, and I got it. When guidance counselors or psychologists tell me, or librarians or educators tell me, I know this boy, and as a result of him reading your book, he's better self-regulating. He's making better choices. He is choosing to show up, not to burn down the world like Killmonger and Black Panther, but instead to shine a light in a way that helps ignite others.
That's the best review you could ever get.
That's the best review I could ever get. And that's
I'm so
hopefully
happy for
something
you.
I impart tomorrow.
You absolutely will. No question about it.
We continue to shine our Vassar lights.
Let's go through the 3 hot seat questions fast
Hot seat.
so we can go. Number 1.
Getting ready. Gotta get ready. Seats got warmer.
What was your favorite book to read as a child?
My very favorite book to read as a child was The Snowy Day by
I've never
Ezra
read it.
Jack Keats.
I'll have to read
What?
it
I'm
now.
teaching you something
Yes,
now.
I have to read it.
my
I love to
goodness.
learn. Yeah.
Thank you. I feel honored.
Yeah,
I shared
please.
something.
There's so much
But
help, please.
the reason why is because my mom, she sat little me when I had my Michael Jackson lollipop afro right next to her, and she said, "I want to read something to you." And when she started to go through this picture book, I thought Peter was me. I thought his mom in the book was my mom. I thought the neighborhood was my neighborhood. And that was the very first book that I feel made me see magic is in me, magic is in us, and that we could put the magic in people.
Yeah.
And so that's what I try to do with teaching. I try to do with education.
I love that.
Books.
Love that. Question number 2. How... I wonder what that says. The handwriting is so horrible. Oh, my goodness. Oh,
If you don't know what it says, I don't know what it says.
I know what it says.
Go ahead,
I
you
know
got
what
it?
it says.
All right, let's go.
Having been in the classroom for so long,
Yes.
how have young people changed over time?
Wow. Young people, I feel like that song, Ebony and Ivory, there's good and bad wherever you go, with Paul McCartney and Stevie Wonder. There's that saying that there's nothing new under the sun.
Yeah.
Kids today are kids.
Yeah.
They're the kids from back then. But what has changed is technology.
Yeah.
And what has changed is how I see young people using technology. And one of the things I have to say is it's kind of like that, going back to that quote,
Yeah.
what's the point of gaining the world but losing your soul?
Yeah.
I have to mention one student of mine. I'll never forget what she wrote. We were talking about technology and device usage and whether or not it's good. Every time I see her on her device, she looks so happy.
Mm.
She is on her device almost every time I see her. And she wrote, I feel like I can't put my phone down. And I feel it gets in between me and connecting with people I love.
Wow.
And so I say that the biggest difference is that I feel like a lot of young people they're benefiting in great ways from technology, but at the same time, a lot of young people are grappling with how technology has a grapple on them.
Absolutely. Last question.
Last question.
How do you handle creative blocks?
How do I handle creative blocks?
Yeah.
I got to give a head nod to someone from the Puerto Rican side of my lineage. You know Bad Bunny?
Of course.
Right?
Of course I know Bad Bunny.
Before Bad Bunny, there was Daddy Yankee.
Of course,
And
I know Daddy Yankee
has
too.
this song,
Gasolina.
you just said it, Gasolina, right? Junto lo gasolina, dame más gasolina. Music, right?
Yeah.
There's that saying that when music hits you, you feel no pain.
Yeah.
I use music to fuel my writing and to move me through writer's blocks. Whenever I'm writing, music is on. And a lot of people who are way smarter than me have done the research on how music affects our biochemistry.
Absolutely.
So if I'm listening to a fast-paced song, I'm most likely writing an adrenaline-pumping scene. If I'm listening to a slower-paced song, I'm most likely writing something that is slower and maybe has more of those slower feelings.
Yeah.
But it always has to be instrumental music. I can't listen to music with words because those words get in the way of these words.
Got you.
Yeah.
Got you. Well, we know one thing is that more likely than not, they're instrumentals of songs written by problematic artists if you're listening to it. That is
true.
100%.
When people play back this video, they're going to count how many problematic artists I named.
It's true.
But fortunately, I land on Common, right?
You did.
Yeah.
You did. And somebody else, there's some good people sprinkled in there.
If I
It's
say
okay.
Common like 15 times, will it like
You'll make
negate?
up for it? No.
Oh,
It's all good. Tori, it's been such a privilege talking to you today.
Same.
I can't wait to spend more time with you
Thank
today
you.
and tomorrow.
Yes.
And thank you for doing what you're doing for us today at Vassar and this weekend, but also for contributing and pouring into the world more broadly over the course of the past 2 decades and beyond, because we are all better for the words, the stories, and the authenticity
I appreciate
that you
that.
put into the earth.
I really appreciate
Thank you
that.
so much.
And I have to say that, we started by quoting the song All the Way Up.
Yeah.
And thank you for this interview because it has me still feeling all the way up for what's going to follow for commencement weekend.
Happy to have you here.
Thank you.
And thank you all for tuning in to another episode of Conversations at the Salt Line. We'll talk to you soon. Have a good one.